Hello, I'm John, Shopkeep Arty. Welcome. We've got a special. It's our first of, we've got a few Christmas specials in December, and we are going to be saying hello in a minute to Alex Tolstoy, finding out how she is, and then we're going to be playing a 1 hour art class with her as well. So loads to look forward to. If you are joining live as one of our patrons, if you want to chat, ask a question, to be honest, we're going to be talking about lots of Alex's work that she's been working on, some of the art that she's been doing recently, and you can ask anything within reason, but I'll probably ask it anyway. So you can really ask anything. So no holds barred. So use the Q&A at the bottom, press that, type your question, and I will ask it to Alex at the appropriate moment. You can also make comments as well. So if you see something you really like, by all means, be as gushing as you want, and I'll pass that on to Alex. All the artists love gushing praise of their artwork.
Very kind people, yes.
Yes, exactly. So first of all, let's say hello to Alex, and she has gone the extra mile today, looking very festive. Here she is. Hello, Alex.
Hey, John. Happy holidays.
Yes, happy holidays, and loving the hat. Loving the hat. I feel a bit odd one out, really. I need to up my game for the next.
There you go for the next talk.
Yeah, I think my kids did get me one year, and it said "bar humbug" on it. So anyway, which was probably fairly relevant, to be honest. But probably moaning about something. So today we are going to be exploring some of Alex's recent artworks, and she's been Alex is great at experimenting with lots of different techniques and everything, and she's mentioned a few sort of Japanese things that she's been inspired by, and she'll talk about that. I hadn't heard of one of the terms that she used, but we'll talk about that very shortly. Right. What we're also going to be exploring is coming up with a few ideas about possible art series or an art workshop next year in 2024. Would love your feedback when we're discussing that, and any input. Maybe you come up with an idea yourself, but for an art series, if you've joined any of our art series in the past, we like to have a theme running through it of some description. In fact, last month we hosted Barry Herneman over in Wales, and each one of those classes is all orientated around a food pen. And if you've not heard what that is, it's basically like an ink pen, but it's got a bent nib at the top, and it's calligraphic, really. You can but you orientate your hand depending on what angle you hold the pen at, has a different thickness of line because the nib is bent at the end. So that was really interesting. It was great for plein air sketches, actually. Then we did
four. What kind of pen? How do you spell
Food, Fude. Yeah. Have a look.
I'll have to look that up.
We created some great, and if you go to our video library actually and click, because it was only recently, so his classes are towards the end, at the top, and if you click on class info, you can have a look at some of the paintings that were painted during that, and so have a look at all the different thicknesses of. It's a really great, and what he does is Barry uses it's a waterproof ink, but it's spreadable initially. It depends on probably the paper that you're using. So what he does, he adds it on, but then uses a bit of water to blend it and create the lights and shades prior to putting the watercolor over the top. So it's a nice technique, and very, very quick if you were in a plein air scenario and just wanted to kind of sketch something on a sketchbook.
For that.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to be talking about some ideas for next year, and then I will talk about the class that we are going to be releasing today that you can watch, and you can watch it. All patrons can watch it for the entire month of December. And we're going to be doing this with some other artists as well. We're hosting Howard Jones, I think, next week, and then Renato Palmuti from Brazil as well. So, and each one of those has got an associated class attached to it. So all for the month of December, so you can just really throw yourself into your art for the month of December. Right, so Alex, you've been I guess you've been experimenting and painting and doing various bits and bobs. What sort of things have you been working on recently?
Some traditional painting, but also, as you mentioned, some oddball bits. So one of the things I want to show today will be paintings on different surfaces, one of which is yupo, what's known as yupo, Y-U-P-O.
Okay.
which is officially a paper, but actually a kind of plastic. And what happens when you paint with watercolor on it is the pigments basically float on the surface of the paper and do various odd things. You cannot be, well, not easily anyway, very precise with it. So if your painting is too tight, if you're worried that you're putting in too much detail, for example, try painting on yupo. You just cannot get away with that. It will force you to be looser. And so one of the things that I've done, I just love yupo. One goes through phases, of course, and this is sort of a yupo phase, and I'll show you some of the work that's come out of that.
Brilliant.
But there are other things as well. As you heard me mention at one point before we went on the air, there are various Japanese techniques which are also interesting, and I'll show you some bits about that in a little while as well.
Brilliant, brilliant. So you've got a painting in front of you. What
I do.
Is that on one of these plasticky surfaces? Okay.
Yes,
Let me show that to
painting.
Let me show that to people. Right.
Let's see.
So I can see the flow of the water. Is that watercolor?
It is. It actually is. And one of the things that you'll notice with yupo, as I said, the pigments tend to kind of pool. And then when they dry, they leave these very interesting patterns. So this is tulips. You can't be, as I say, terribly detailed about it. You just kind of go with the flow, as they say, and you end up with these lovely little puddles which dry. And I really do like yupo. As I say, it's a plastic paper. So when you get it, you'll feel that it's not like normal watercolor paper at all.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it almost, when I first saw it, I thought that you've used ink. It almost has that sort of ink texture
well,
to the
actually,
watercolor.
One of the pieces that I'll show you next involve putting some ink on yupo. One of the nice things about yupo with watercolor is that if you change your mind and you want to erase something, it just comes right off with water. It's very, very easy to change your mind and to lift things up. But if you use ink, excuse me, as you'll see on another painting, the ink does not lift. Watercolor does, ink does not. But yupo always does strange things with whatever you're painting with.
Right. And so it's not, because it's obviously plasticky, it's not absorbing the paint into...
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So it's just really sitting on the surface. Does it take longer to dry, therefore?
Well, I don't know. I tend to just disappear. I leave it and go off. It probably does take a little longer than traditional watercolor to dry, because you really want it. If it's not totally dry and you touch it, it will run off the paper.
Right. And Karen's asked, is yupo paper readily available?
Oh, yes, absolutely. You just have to look on any site that sells art supplies. Look at YUPO, yupo. You'll see pads of this stuff. They also have rolls, which I haven't gotten into. I'm just too lazy. I take it off of a pad.
Okay.
So, yes, it's readily available.
Yeah. Victoria said, I missed the name. So it's yupo, which is YUPO. And you can see that on actually the base. You can see tulips on yupo written at the bottom left of the painting there.
Right.
Brilliant. Okay. So yupo paper. That looks
yupo paper.
That was fantastic.
Okay, and here's another yupo.
And
this one involves
oh, that's lovely. Yeah, really great.
Yeah. Thanks. Yes.
And Mary Ann's just said that Jackson's art, and we have a link from our website to Jackson's art, and they've got yupo paper on there, and if you order it through our link on our website, and if you create a new account, which just come up with a different email address, just create a new account, you get 10% off your first order if you do it through our site. So highly recommend doing that. And if you order a few other stuff, just save 10% on everything. It's quite good. Yes, no, the texture there is great, very dynamic.
Yes, this is some sunflowers, and I did actually add some gold paint in here too, which may or may not show up on a photograph. But again, you kind of put the paint down. This started out life as a wash, which I wasn't crazy about, and I ended up painting some sunflowers on it and enjoyed it. So you get with the ink, you can get some very strong, intense colors, which you might miss with the watercolor. So sometimes it's fun to go with ink, and sometimes you go with watercolor. But in any case, on yupo, it will basically flow and do its own thing, and you have to kind of stand back and hope for the best.
Yeah, lovely. So you've obviously been doing quite a bit of experimentation with all this stuff. Have you tried, what sort of things have you tried then? So obviously the ink and watercolor.
The ink and watercolor.
Tried
and I'll
any
show
other
you one more
thing?
watercolor piece with yupo, and that's sort of a traditional fish. You can kind of see here that this is watercolor on yupo, and you can see the puddling, which is lovely when it dries, but also the fact that the paint runs away. It does all sorts of strange things. You kind of suggest directions it should go in, but it does its own thing. And this turned out to, you can tell that it is a fish. It is an angelfish, in fact. But beyond that, they come out a little more abstract than traditional watercolors.
Yeah, yeah, which is actually quite nice for a water-based subject, like a fish, because it's got that almost like that refraction in the water, hasn't it, or whatever, that sort of effect.
That's a nice way to look at it. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Lovely.
Okay. More traditional painting lately has been, as you say, I've kind of gotten into the Japanese vibe. And here you have some ikebana. I did a whole series on those. I love the idea of having a bowl plus some kind of a plant in the bowl. Here you have a very vertical plant with some berries. And this is more normal, if you will.
Yeah.
But ikebana has such beautiful shapes. Some of these plants are just wonderful. So here's an example of getting into a series. This isn't a peculiar experimental paper or product, but the subject is a little different.
Yes. And I like how is that the normal style where you'll keep one side very clean and then the other side you sort of
mess it up? Yeah, that's more or less what I tend to do. You're right. I think the clean side tends to show that you can paint normally, but in fact, I like things when they're a little more messed up. So one side tends to be disturbed.
Yeah.
And then here's another painting that's sort of normal, although one person asked at one point if this had been painted on yupo, but it was not a yupo painting. It just kind of looks like one because it is so blurry. This is a tree. You can see some blue paint, and in fact, I added some shimmer product, which looks good in reality, but doesn't photograph terribly well. So the shimmer paints or iridescent paints, I kind of recommend, but with reservation, in that if you want to photograph something and send it out for a competition or whatever, you won't really see it. You won't see the shimmer, but you will see it in real life, and that can add a nice effect.
Yeah.
So here's a tree.
It's lovely. It always amazes me at how effortlessly you create your art, Alex, but it always looks so effective.
Well,
it's actually quite annoying, to be honest. I find it annoying.
Well, the paint does all the work. I just throw it on there and hope something happens. Now, one of the experimental papers is you have a lot of Japanese handmade papers. And this is, I don't know what this one is called. I can't remember. But it's if you look at it, it's not like normal watercolor paper. It is a texture to it and a feel. And the edges are all deckled. It's kind of interesting paper. But one thing about these handmade Japanese papers, you cannot lift, you can't change your mind. Once you've put down a mark, it's there forever. So here I've just done some simple birch trees. Simple because you really can't go wrong with these, and you don't need to worry about lifting anything to get a particular look. So this is a paper that's fun to try, but I'm not sure it's for all your work. It's is something worth experimenting with. You might find that you love it. I find that it's difficult to deal with. It's kind of temperamental. But in any case, here's another substance which we might discuss, in fact, in a future webinar. The yupo, the Japanese handmade papers, and the different ways that they behave with paint, and what you can do with them.
Yes, yes. So we've been talking about different potential themes for our series. So we'll maybe come into that. We'll go through rest of Alex's paintings, but then we'll talk about some of the themes that we might pick for next year, and would love your feedback on the
Absolutely.
chat. Right, let's have a look at this one.
Okay, this one has gotten kind of damped, but generally this is what's known as Gyotaku, but not the fish imprinting that is typically done with Gyotaku. That's Gyotaku. It's a Japanese style. There is a particular kind of paper for it and ink. It's kind of an acrylic paint, but it's a little different. It's specific to Gyotaku. And what you do is you take an item, such as what traditionally they use fish. You take a whole fish, you'll paint one side of it with this Gyotaku paint, and then you apply the paper to the painted object. Here, these are leaves. I painted the leaves, applied the paper, and you sort of press down on it and then peel it up. And what you get is an impression as a result. And you get lots of lovely detail, especially with fish. I don't know that I brought any fish up today, but that's something, again, that we can talk about in a future webinar, is this technique and how interesting it can be. These are leaves from a geranium, and you kind of see a little bit of the leaf structure, which is what I enjoy doing. You just get the impression, and that makes it interesting.
Yeah. So Carol said, please repeat the word for the Japanese painting. Well, it's called Gyotaku. So it's Gyotaku. Gyotaku. And if you put it into Google, you'll find that it first of all comes up with Gyotaku fish, because right. I think there's a lot of fish done with this printing technique. But right. Alex wasn't settled for that. She wanted to create her new different subjects and so she's been experimenting with all the same sort of printing styles. And is this a leaf that is it a maple leaf or?
Yes, this is a series of different leaves, mainly maple leaves. But then I think one of them is an oak leaf. I can't really remember. These were just picked up leaves where you did the same thing. You painted them a bit, and you pressed this paper on it, pulled it up, and you have these impressions. So you get these lovely veins from the leaves, lots of interesting detail. And you can compose your leaves on a surface before you do the impression, so that your composition can be whatever you want it to be. The leaves clustered or the leaves apart. And then sometimes what you can do is to use a little bit of watercolor on top. So I think here I have used a little bit of yellow or gold, probably quin gold, and some blues on top. You're not restricted to just using the Gyotaku ink. You can go over it a little bit with watercolor, but you have to experiment. I find that if I put too much watercolor on it, it's not as effective as just little touches.
No, okay.
But in any case, here you have Gyotaku, and another technique that we can discuss more in the future. And here is a Gyotaku, a different one, with some purple Gyotaku paint. And these were some lavender leaves. Paint them, impression, and pick it up, and there you are.
Lovely. And is that technique, is it just as simple as pretty much laying it in the ink and then putting it on, or?
You put the object down and then you ink it.
Right. Okay.
And when they talk about fish, my understanding is that one of the reasons that the Japanese started doing that was to keep a record of the size of the fish that they caught. So you would paint it with this technique, and you would basically have a full impression of the fish. You'd know how big it was, and you'd have a record. So I think that's how it started out.
Yeah, like a life-size painting. It's not
exactly
you looking at something and taking your own interpretation. It's actually keeping it a lifestyle. Okay, I get it. That's really really good.
Okay. Now a different, whoops, let's put this the right orientation, slightly different business is this painting with that involves some lace, some pearls, and simple objects and keys. And what this did was it used some lace and something called distress spray, which is wonderful with lace because when you spray it on, it will not penetrate, it won't soak the lace entirely. So you get the patterns of the lace. And then elsewhere where you get more of the paint from the distress spray, you can fill in with painting something else. So this was a particular piece inspired by, as you know, I'm in the Jean Haynes online school, which is wonderful. And one of the things she did was she painted pearls. And so this is pearls with lace and keys and distress spray, which is an interesting substance.
Lovely, lovely.
And a different one, same sort of thing, but with a different color. The distress sprays come in all sorts of colors, and this is a different lace here, pearls again, nothing else, just let's see things here. It's hard to,
yeah, some nice textures and capturing the light really well as well. There was a question that Karen asked just a bit earlier, actually, when you painted on that Yukon paper with the ink. She said, "What type of ink did you use? Was it acrylic?" Or...
I think I used what's known as FW or FMW. It's just, and I don't think it really matters. Try different inks.
Yeah, experiment.
Right, exactly. I think I have a whole mess of the F&W. I've used alcohol inks as well, but they're a little harder to manipulate. They tend to sort of lie where you put them, whereas some of the other inks you can move them around. And the F&W, I'm particularly fond of, especially the sepia ink. So.
Karen's also said so many new materials to ask Father Christmas for this year.
You never have enough. And then people keep inventing these things.
I know, so. I know, new things. Oh.
Okay, another piece that's a little different. Still lifes are fun. This is a clock.
Oh, yes.
On the mantle, so this is more traditional, as I say. It's something I've done recently. I kind of enjoy looking at still lifes, which are great because they don't move. They're always there, and you can do what you want with them.
Now, if you just keep that a moment, Alex, I'm interested about the focal point of that one, because obviously people say you've got to the rule of thirds or whatever. I would say that almost your eye is brought to the corner where the darkest area, the corner of that clock, maybe there.
Here?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But then it's the clock face that grabs your attention next, and you move up to the hands of the clock. So it's an interesting journey there for your eye, I think, where it's do you plan this before you paint it, or do you just go ahead and you think, I think this would look good?
Well, it's funny, very often before setting down to actually paint anything, I tend to think about what it is I want to do, because if I have no idea, things turn out to be a disaster. So typically there's some kind of a germ of an idea, but as you say, things tend to evolve. So I'll start out by painting a clock, a normal clock, and then decide that it needs something underneath it as a base. Yeah. And then, as you say, things just sort of evolve. It's not entirely planned, but there is the beginning of a plan at first. It just you just kind of go with what
you just go with it. Yeah,
that's right.
I guess through experience of just doing so many paintings, you just know what works and what doesn't.
Exactly. Well, I know. Let's see. Let me wrap up a bit. I've got zillions and zillions of paintings here. Let me not show them all. Here's one that's more traditional. There's some begonia leaves. So you've got some leaves, which are kind of interesting. Anyway, that's a more normal. I've done some of that. That was fun. Let's see. Berries are always fun if you do blackberries, for example. Love doing leaves and blackberries. And one of the things about the blackberries is that you get these lovely highlights on them, which makes them fun to do. Let's see, and one final, let me just do one final piece. Again, I've got tons of this stuff. And in fact, one of the bits that one should mention is that when you paint, you can end up painting a lot. And in fact, the more you paint, the better you'll get. But what happens is all this stuff just piles up. I can't tell you how many hundreds of paintings that are stored away. And I've been asked the question, what do you do with them all? You can certainly toss some of them. I paint on the backs of a lot of them if I wasn't that crazy about them. But what I do with the ones that I want to keep is I put them in these archival boxes. They're big boxes, and I label each one by the subject matter. So there'll be still lifes, landscapes, food, animals, that sort of thing. You have to kind of organize them eventually because they do get out of hand. I don't know what people do. Maybe Boxing Day, if you have a good fire for Guy Fawkes, for example, I don't know. Something this is, you never really know what to do with a lot of these things, but they will add up.
Yeah, no, I think they really do. I mean, sometimes when we're hosting an artist and we ask them, I remember with Barry's series last month, and we asked him to show this painting, and he took the camera with him, and you saw his art studio, and there were so many paintings just everywhere. Yeah, exactly. It's
well, we're really not alone in this, because even I was thinking about this the other day. Even people like Turner, I love Turner's work. He's got a whole museum, of course, as you know, the Tate Modern. He had a whole mess of paintings that he didn't sell. Yeah. I mean, look at Turner, a wonderful, prolific, successful artist, but he still had paintings sitting around. And of course, he could give them to a museum and donate them. People were still happy to see them. What do? We're all in the same boat. We've all got excess paintings.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. God, think if you just bought all those excess paintings, all those hundreds of years ago, just from Turner. Yeah, I know. Right, so let's talk about what some ideas that, I mean, I think Alex has inferred some of them actually as we've been going along. So one of the ideas is that we run a series. It may be 3 or 4 sessions, 1 hour classes, 1 per week, but we will vary the mediums that we're using from a paper perspective. Is that one of the ideas that you've got, Alex?
That's it. That's what I'm thinking anyway. Talking about yupo in detail, painting on yupo, looking at some of the Japanese handmade papers, looking at the Gyotaku method. These are all slightly different, slightly peculiar, and worth experimenting with, because you never quite know. It's kind of like when you go to school and you take a math class. People think, oh, you'll never use that, but you just don't know, because sometimes things will come back and you might fall in love with a particular technique, a particular paper, and that's for you. So it's worth experimenting for that alone.
Yeah. So I think knowing how fast Alex tends to paint, what we might do in that hour each week is do a couple of paintings on using that particular surface, and then the following week we'll do the next surface, and we'll kind of maybe do 3 sessions or something like that, and we'll work out with Alex which month suits her, but we'll pick a month in 2024. But if that sounds good, if you'd be interested in that, please do let me know on the Q&A now. Just say yay or nay. If you've got an idea for something else. I mean, looking at some of the paintings that Alex has done, if anything jumps out at you that you think, oh, it'd be great to focus on painting fish, for example, or whatever, let us know, because it'd be great to have your feedback. Karen said, oh, wow, Alex, you are always so inspiring. Sounds really interesting and something totally different. So that's a yay for that one. Sandra said, Alex is so inspiring, her willingness to experiment. Exactly. You've got to push the boundaries, haven't you, Alex? Otherwise, you don't learn new things. And so that's great. Beth said, wonderful idea to have Alex lead us into exploring with all those various papers and substrates. Maybe mix inks and watercolor too. Carol said, yes, I'm interested, as is Sandra. Marianne, and loves building paintings, Marianne as well. Victoria, love the idea of different papers and techniques. It's a yes from me. And Sally said, yes, that sounds great and exciting. So some great feedback there. So thank you for that.
Wonderful.
Right. Well, thank you very much for sharing some of that today. It's been lovely to join you in December in the lead up to Christmas, and hopefully you've got a nice. I know you're staying at home over Christmas, so hopefully you'll have a lovely time. Now, I said I was going to launch a 1 hour art class today with Alex for all our patrons, and I've done that now. And let me show you how you can access that. Now, this 1 hour class was actually part of another series we held with Alex, I think almost a year ago now. And the first one was where we focused on common everyday objects that you might have, and Alex actually took some clothes pegs and used those as the subject, which I thought, is Alex mad? Clothes pegs? You can't make art out of clothes pegs. And we did, and it was a really, really great session. So it's the first of 4, but this first one I've released for patrons of all levels and for the whole month of December. And how you access it is you literally go to our website, click on the events page. In fact, I'll share my screen and I can show you exactly how to do it. So you go to Shopkeep Party, click on the events tab there. And if you scroll down, here it is, from the 5th to the 31st of December, 1 hour still life class. And if you press play class, it will then open up the class and you can play it there. And you've got the recommended materials. You've got the a little sample picture you can download as well at the bottom. And if you want to share your art that you create when you've done this class, if you click this link here, and it will open up the Facebook post that's relevant for that, and you can see what other people did at the time as well. That's some really weird and wonderful.
Yes.
Those are those plastic ones, weren't they? They're plastic.
Right.
So some great little things there. So do share your art on there, and let us know how you get on. And we're going to be doing this throughout the month of December. We're going to be hosting a new artist. As I said, Howard Jones next week will release something from his as well. And then also Renato Palmuti, where we're going to where we're going to release that as well. And so you can have a great creative December. So enjoy that. That'll work from now. You can click on that now and play it, and hope you enjoy it. And are there any other questions before we say goodbye to the lovely Alex? Yvonne said, yes, great idea with different papers and techniques, mats, etc. That's great. So yeah, I think people, it's nice to be introduced to different things, especially this plasticky paper. I mean, it's not something you would go looking for. I find this when you go to a supermarket and you're going up and down the aisles, you go, I never knew this type of food existed.
Exactly. Same thing.
Yeah. Victoria said, happy Christmas, Alex. And Karen said, just a big thank you and happy Christmas as well. So
indeed.
Thank you for joining us. Yeah, exactly. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. In fact, or you may be joining me. I think we've got a workshop with Gaurav in India this Thursday. So may see you there. Until then, thank you very much and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, Alex.
See you next year.
Yes. Oh, gosh. I know. It's almost 2024. I can't believe it.
I know. I can't face it.
Have a good rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Bye.